Today we're going to dive and cover all of the conjugations in the preterite tense, going back over those regular verbs, kargar zars, and then a variety of irregular verbs that are going to be new to you and the conjugations that follow. To start, we remember that AR verbs are going to follow e, aste, o, amos, astes, and aron. ER and IR verbs are going to have the following endings: e, iste, io, imos, istes, and ieron. Note that the accents are going to be on the yo form and the LAU stead forms in both. Kargar zars, to briefly go over them again, when a verb that ends in kargar zars, in the preterite tense, there's going to be a spelling change in only the yo form. So kar verbs are going to change the C to a QU, gar verbs, the G is going to change to a GU, and then zar verbs, the Z is going to change to a C. And then, of course, the actual ending is going to follow. So a kar verb is actually going to end in QUE with an accent, a gar verb GUE with an accent, and then a zar verb C and E with an accent. For example, you're going to see that only in the yo form those change. So you can see every other one is one in the yo form. But for mis amigos y yo, it's just almorzamos, no change there. But yo jugar conjugates as yo jugué. La clase empezó, no change there. Yo comencé, change in the yo form. Mi madre pagó, regular verb. Yo llegué, see the U in there. Mi padre sacó, no change. And yo practiqué, changing from practicar to QUE. There are going to be some verbs that have an I to Y stem change in the L, A, U stead form. If you learned about gerunds during the present progressive unit, this is going to look very, very familiar. Some of these verbs that are going to change are going to be leer, construir, creer, caerse, and contribuir, to name a few. And the key point to cover there is that they change because their stem ends in a vowel, meaning that leer, construir, you see the double E, the UI, the double E, the AE, and the UI again is going to cause an I to Y stem change. For ER and IR endings, those are going to stay the same, except if, as you can imagine, as they did with gerunds, if the spelling change is going to happen in the bottom two, meaning the LAU stead and the AOS AOS stedes form, that I is going to change to a Y, much like it did in the gerund. So it's, instead of being E, stay EO, the I is going to change to a Y. And the reason that it does that is that aesthetically they do not want three vowels in a row. We'll see some examples. For example, if we have the verb leer, we have leí, leíste, leyó, leímos, leístes, and leyeron. Where you can see the bottom two, the I changes to a Y instead of L-E-I-O with an accent, it's L-E-Y-O. And same thing with leyeron. Caerse is going to have the same thing. You can see in the bottom two that it's going to change I to Y. These two specific verbs have accents on the top four forms, as well as if there is a strong vowel. So when you have any sort of A or E in the stem, you're going to have to add accents on top. So leí has an accent, but also leíste, leímos, and leístes have accents as well. Same thing with caíste, caímos, and caístes. So these verbs have the accents on all top four forms when there is a strong vowel, meaning a strong vowel is A, E, or O. Again, you can see at the bottom the I to Y stem change, and you're going to hear me call these pancakes or pancakes because of the way that they're flat on the bottom makes them look like pancake verbs. Some examples of this: if you wanted to say Jaime and Luis construyeron, I read, yo leí. Usted contribuyó, you contributed. She fell, cayó, se cayó. Nosotros creímos, we believed. Tú construiste, you constructed. Notice that construiste does not have an accent, as the other verbs did, because the U is not a strong vowel. More stem changing verbs. IR stem changers sometimes have a spelling change in the LAO stead form and the AOS AS ustedes form in the preterite tense if there's a stem change in the present tense. So again, you're going to see the bottom two forms change according to a certain type of spell change. And again, following the patterns of those gerunds, you're going to see why those were important to learn and get down in earlier chapters. For example, pedir. Conjugates normally in the top four, pedi, pediste, but instead of pedio, it's going to become pedio, pedimos, pedistes, and then pidieron. You see the E to I stem change. Dormir, dormi, dormiste, and then the gerund form durmiendo is going to show up again, and we're going to see it become durmió and durmieron, where the top four are regular and the bottom two make the change. There's going to be more E to I stem changes following pedir and dormir. For example, preferir becomes prefirio and prefirieron in the eos, or in the third person forms. Servir becomes sirvio and sirvieron in the third person forms. Vestir becomes vistio and vistieron. Competir, compitio, compitieron. Seguir becomes sigio, sigieron. And then finally, there's one ODU besides dormir, which is going to be morir, murio, and murieron. Again, these changes are only happening in the third person form, and when I say third person, that's ele usted, ellos, ellas, ustedes. If you can tell from the gerunds, if you remember, it was sirviendo, vistiendo, compitiendo, and siguiendo, muriendo. So all of those stem changes happen at the bottom, while up top you would conjugate as normal. Some practices of this, preferir is going to look like this, where up top it looks normal. Preferi, preferiste, preferimos, and preferistes. However, at the bottom, prefirio, prefirieron. Servir is regular up top as well. Servi, serviste, servimos, servistes. But in the bottom, sirvio, sirvieron. Vestirse, again, reflexive and stem change. So it's going to become me vesti, te vestiste, se vistio, nos vestimos, os vestistes, and se vistieron. I'll throw the other verbs up so you can get those down if you'd like to pause to copy those down. Again, the bottom forms are going to change. Compitio, compitieron, sigio, sigieron, murio, and murieron. We've already covered some other irregular verbs in earlier chapters. Remember, ir and ser conjugate the same way. Fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, fuistes, and fueron. Dar and ver, very, very similar. Di, vi, diste, viste, dio, vio, dimos, vimos, distes, vistes, dieron, and vieron. But we're going to dive into another group of verbs, and one of the verbs you might have caught was estar, and that's going to change to estuve before adding irregular endings. If you remember covering estar being estuve, estuviste, estuvo, we're going to bring those verbs back as well as add in a whole group of other ones. Hacer is going to change to is before adding irregular endings. So for example, when we covered hacer and estar being ise, hiciste, and then izo, of course having the z on it, hicimos, hicistes, and hicieron. Same thing with estuve, estuviste, and estuvo, estuvimos, estuvistes, and estuvieron. Those are going to be two verbs a part of a bigger group of irregular verbs that are going to have these endings. Again, noting that hacer in the la usted form is going to change to a z. There are four more verbs that follow the pattern of estar and hacer in the preterite tense that we're going to focus on. Tener, poder, poner, and saber, which is going to be to find out in the preterite tense. So for example, if you wanted to say I had, I could, I put, or I knew, or in this case, in the preterite tense, I found out, you're going to follow the same type of pattern, and we'll go over that in just a second. The stems that you are going to change, much like estar becomes estuve, and hacer becomes is, tener is going to become tuve, poner is going to become pus, poder is going to become pud, saber is going to become soup. These four verbs, along with estar, are what I like to call U verbs, where the stem changes to include a U. And then these irregular endings that we're talking about are as follows: e, iste, o, imos, istes, and ieron, where you can see the yo form and the la usted form have the ar preterite endings, as in e, aste, o, but you can see that the two form changes to iste, and then the right column, imos, istes, and ieron, are all like er, ir verbs. So it's kind of a hybrid between AR endings and ER-IR endings, and that's why sometimes you'll hear these called hybrid verbs or hybrid endings. Tener would look like this. If you wanted to say I had, you'd say tuve, tuviste, tuvo, tuvimos, tuvistes, and tuvieron. Notice that there are no accents anymore, just like there weren't on estar and hacer. Poder, pude, pudiste, pudo, pudimos, pudistes, and pudieron. No accents as well. None of these hybrid or IUJ verbs are going to have accents. Poner is going to become puse, pusiste, puso, pusimos, pusistes, and pusieron. Saber, supe, supiste, supo, supimos, supistes, and supieron. Again, taking those irregular endings attached to those stems, pus and sup. So if we started out with these verbs, you can see that the top five, tu, vistuv, pud, pus, and sup, are U verbs. Aser is going to be what we call an I verb. The general name that I like to give this group is an IUJ, where the U's are the ones that you see there. The I is is, along with others, and then we'll see what J verbs look like in just a little bit. And then we have our irregular endings a, iste, o, imos, istes, and ieron, just like before. More verbs that are going to change. Querer and venir are considered I verbs, where they change from quer to quis, venir to vin. Decir becomes dich, traduch, trach, and conduch. And then those irregular endings are going to follow, where we have a, iste, o, imos, istes, and ieron. So if you wanted to say I wanted, you'd say quise, quisiste, quiso, quisimos, quisistes, and quisieron. Vine, viniste, vino, vinimos, vinistes, and vinieron. With our J verbs, the verbs that end in J, or the stems that end in J, as in decir, traducir, traer, and conducir, you are actually going to substitute the ellos, ellas, ustedes ending ieron with just eron. So basically taking out the I. So instead of dijeron, it just becomes dijeron. Tradujeron, trajeron, and condujeron. Again, the verbs with J's take a different third person plural ending. It just drops the I. Querer is going to conjugate as follows in the preterite indicative tense. Decir as follows here. Quise, quisiste, quiso, quisimos, quisistes, quisieron. Dije, dijiste, dijo, dijimos, dijistes, and dijeron. Dijeron. So it is not going to conjugate anything like querí, queriste, querió, querimos, queristes, and querieron. Not going to be the case. Not deci, deciste, deció, but rather dije, dijiste, and dijo.